often asked by a lot of people, who should listen to the show? Who do I coach? And it's really those people that are at some stage in their life where they know there's something more, right? They know there's something better they should be doing, but for whatever reason, they just can't pull the trigger, or they just can't get past it, or maybe it is they already figured out what that move is, and they don't know the steps to actually be able to run like hell. If you're one of those people that struggle with, how do I go to the next level, or how do I kick it up a notch, or how do I figure out what the next level is, then this podcast is set up just for you.
Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by Point Blank Safety Services. These guys are changing the game when you think about security. They are using active duty officers on their off-duty time. Not only giving these officers an additional income, because we all know police officers just aren't paid that well, but they're giving them off-duty income and using the highest caliber of people to secure our highways, our buildings, and bridges. Check them out at pointblanksafety.com.
I truly believe that everybody is a badass. And I think, everybody inside them has this burning internal flame that is igniting them from the inside. Now, for some people, that internal flame is really a pilot light. It's not glowing very bright. But for other people that you see that have reached some sort of level of success in life, that thing's burning like a damn bonfire. And when they move through the world, everybody else around them is lit up by their energy, passion, and drive. So my goal is to help you find the kindling, the logs, and everything else to put onto that fire so it explodes. And not only does it light up your life, but it lights up for everybody else that's around you. Because our job in life is not to just be badasses for ourselves, but to deliver that gift to everybody else in the world, because people are inspired by our actions and the things we do. A lot of people ask me all the time, what does it really mean to run like hell? And it's a great question, because for me it's a self-qualifier. If I'm out at a networking event or I'm at an engagement, when I tell people what I do and I tell them I have a podcast, they immediately self-qualify. And what I mean is, when I say things like run like hell or I help badasses kick more ass in life, the badasses or the people that just get that phrase, they step forward and they want to engage and they want to get into a lot bigger conversations. The people that are just kind of content and okay in life and are just frustrated and are just going to stay there, they self-qualify and they actually shrink away from the conversation. So it's a lot of fun. So the run like hell phrase is, I want to help those people that know that they are a badass and they just don't know how to freaking actually go after it and get some things done. Several people that I work with, from different CEOs to country music singers to executives and coaches and everything else, what I find is there's something in their life that's just completely held them back. And it's usually one of three things. People won't actually pull the trigger to get going. And the first one is, I find that a lot of people, they have a dream or passion, but they're actually really scared of what success might make them become. In the movies and TVs and everything, the people of wealth, the people of success and those type of things are always portrayed as a villain. And they're always portrayed as this aggressive jackass that screws other people over. And it doesn't matter what movie it is. And I think a lot of people, what they look at and what they associate is, if they hit success, that's who they'll become. So they actually hold back from going for it because they actually like themselves as a person and they're afraid they'll become that mean, aggressive jackass out there that they've seen in the movies. I mean, I know this affected me when I was growing up. Is one of the patriarchs of my family was a guy named Uncle Brian. Brian was a great guy, but he was a number 3 or 4 in Bank of America in their mergers and acquisitions division. And I remember when I got my first sales job, and I was so excited about it, but I called my Uncle Brian up. And I said, hey, I've got a sales job. It's great. And his response was, call me back when you find a real job. And that impacted the hell out of me because I was going for, how do I go big? How do I go great? How do I do all the things that I know I should be doing? And he just knocked me down a notch. But, luckily being me, I said, screw that guy, and I'm keep on moving. Now, just so you know, we made amends years later and we figured it all out. But I had to really prove myself that I was a badass in sales before he acknowledged that I had a real career. So the second reason people don't go after some sort of level of success is they just have this need to be liked. And, what's it's amazing is people don't think they have this problem, but you can watch in their interactions and you watch in the things they do, and you can see this happen all over the place. So let's say that, here's a prime example in my life. When I was younger and I really wanted to go be on stage and I really wanted to be this guy that stood in front of the room, I went to my family. And I talked to them specifically about this is what I want to do. And my mom and dad and brothers were like, dude, go do it. You're built for this. This is the greatest thing. Have fun. You're young enough to figure it out and can handle anything that may screw up. And I thought, cool, man, my family's really behind me. Well, at the time, I was really learning how to be in corporate America and do all those things. And I was out networking. Well, I started talking to all the people that I respected in the networking world about this is what I want to do, and they had the opposite effect. They started telling me things like, it's a lot of work, you better have a second job, not a lot of people make money in public speaking and those type of things. And unfortunately, my need to be liked in the corporate world outweighed my need to be liked from my family. And I think I was more worried about being disliked by the people I networked with. So I didn't choose early in my career to go out and get on stages. I actually fought it. Now, I'm glad later I discovered that about myself and was able to go out and, get back on stages and everything else. But what happens is when we have a dream, we have a passion, we have something we want to do, we start down a path. And if we start talking to the wrong people about what we're doing, they will influence us. And what happens is we have some sort of weird form of respect for those people's opinions. And when they say, man, that's going to be tough or don't do that, our need to be liked by them and agree with them and do the actions they're suggesting what we do really steps up and holds us back from going for it. What I tell people to really get over that little factor is look at people and say, hold my beer and watch this shit. And just really say, screw these guys and not give a damn about what their opinion, their thoughts is. This is your life, man. You get one shot, one opportunity, which is a great song, by the way. And you just get a chance to freaking go for it. And the third thing that really holds people back from going to some sort of level of success is it's a flipping grind. Man, success is an absolute beating, guys. It's worth everything. I love how Jim Rohn, he says it the best, that, life is not necessarily about accomplishing your goals. It's about who you become along the journey. Growing up, I had a buddy's dad who used to say this, life is not about the things you do, it's about the stories you can tell later. What happens to a lot of people is because they've, in their entire life, chased things that they didn't love to do. They just took the first job that was in front of them, versus going and finding their passion and finding what they loved, which I was guilty of early in my career. Because they've done that, that's how they've known life all the way through. So they've never stepped up to the plate to really chase their dreams, so they don't know what the hard work and discipline is. They're just doing enough to get by, right? They've become okay just being okay. But when you start chasing your dreams, what you'll find is you start getting into a grind, but you don't always know you're into a grind. You start putting in extra hours. You start doing extra things. You start doing more. Hell, I'm recording this podcast on a damn Saturday, 8:30 in the morning, because I'm chasing my dreams of what I want to do, right? You've got to change your mindset, everything. And if you don't like the idea of working your ass off, then just get okay with being okay, because it's going to be a lot of work. And which leads me to the total thought process of too many people focus on the right now. Right? They focus on, I don't have enough money coming in the moment. I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills and this, that, and the other. Well, stop all that shit. Right? Instead, start focusing on the future. Focus on where you're going. When I started my company, people ask me all the time, how's business going? And I said, you know what? I'm planning for year 2 and 3. And they kind of look at me funny. I'm like, this is year 1, trying to figure it all out, but I'm going for 2 or 3, right? So what happens now, but we're going big, we're going further, we're going beyond this point. But it's all about keeping your intent and your thought processes aligned so you can be who you were meant to be all along. and really let that bonfire, explode and burn and just be bright as hell, and be okay that you're going to get your ass kicked along the way, and be okay that you're going to take it on the chin and make some stupid decisions. I mean, I've already made some financial dumb decisions on my part, things I could have avoided already, but it's all a learning experience. It's all about taking it on the chin and going, all right, well, that sucks. Well, now we know how to not do it that way again, and keep progressing forward as we continue on and move through it. There's 3 things that people need to do to actively find their inner badass. The first thing they need to do is look at their life, look at your journey, and go, okay, what's the scariest flipping thing I could do right now? What is the one thing that scares the pure living shit out of you when you think about your career and what you want to do? And the reason I get people to think about that is because once you start thinking about that, there's something there. And usually the thing that scares you the absolute most is the thing you should be doing. It's a very interesting thing. I found this out because I went through my sales career, and anytime I knew I was stacked up against something where I should make a cold call or I should, go after a high-hitting CEO. If I felt that sense of fear well up in me, dude, I charged straight at it. Because every time I did that, it opened up a plethora of worlds and of things for me, and it really allowed me to go. So as you think about, how do I discover my passion, start off with what scares me the most. Young in my career, getting on stage, scared the pure living crap out of me. But I found that as I went out and got on stages more and more, and I kept pushing towards it, that there was really a passion behind that. And it was really kind of a cool thought process of, as I did it, I not only was able to help and inspire others, but really at the end of the day, I was able to help and inspire myself, which is always a cool, fun ride. And a lot of coaches I talk to, we always joke about, we coach what we want to hear. We coach the things that we want to do, and the same thing happens up. But it all stems from, actually facing whatever it is that's scaring you and moving forward. The second thing that you can do to really find that inner badass is look back on your childhood. I really kind of hate this one, but it's the truth. Is look back on your childhood at, those things that you really got your kicks off, like you got your rocks off, and just got you excited as hell. I'm really glad I get to tell you the story about my clients that thought process really set them down a path to where they're going to go later in life. But it's looking back on what was that thing that just inspired you, or what was that thing that you love to do, but somebody told you that it wasn't going to work, or you couldn't do that for your career. You couldn't do that for your life, right? You couldn't make any money at it. Like it was my problem was, I had my family tell me I should go be a coach, I should be a trainer, I should speak to people, and then the people I was networking with told me I couldn't make any money at it. And unfortunately, I listened to them until later in my life, right? But if we go back to what really inspired us as a kid, right? And, if options 1 and 2 don't help you get there, let's try option 3. So option 3, I just call it The Flame. And I think one of the greatest book series of all time that's not in the self-help, the business development, or the leadership type books is a book series called The Wheel of Time. And this series is crazy. It's 14 books. The smallest one is 800 pages, right? It is an epic. So picture Lord of the Rings on steroids mixed in with Harry Potter and any other just badass series you can think of. Well, in this book, they have this thing called the inner flame. And it really talks about where you take everything you have and you put it in this flame and you're allowed to handle and take on anything. Well, that's where I got this concept from, the inner flame. But I want you to try something for me. I want you, hopefully you're not driving when you listen to this, but if you are, pull over before you try this. But this is what I want you to do. I want you to close your eyes. And I want you to picture yourself in a completely black, dark room, and you can't see anything. You're just sitting there. There's no cold, no warmth. You have no desires, no food, no water, no anything. While you're sitting there in that space, I want you to realize all of a sudden a flame just comes to life. And it's just a little bitty tiny flame that's burning there, just sitting on the edge of your vision. And as you're looking at this flame, you really don't have a whole lot of thoughts. But now the flame starts to expand, and it starts to grow, and it starts to come closer and closer. But now as this flame starts to come closer, you realize inside that flame, there's actually some images starting to come to life. And these images are starting to be projections of some of the things you want to do. Some of the things that inspire you. Some of the things that when you see them, you feel it in your entire body, right? Now those flames should be coming a little bit closer. The images should be getting a little bit more clear. And now you should have a clear definition of what is it you actually want to do. Open your eyes, write it down immediately, pull out your phone, whatever it is those images were. And I'll tell you about one of my clients' stories here in a minute when we did that exercise and of what she came up with. But don't worry about interpreting the images so much. For some people, they readily get an image and they go, oh my God, that's it. Right? For other people, they're like, I've got kind of this idea, but I'll walk you through what we did with one of my clients and how she really wrapped around what she saw in the flame and how we turned that into an actual thing. The three things, just to remind you, thing number one is to do the thing that scares you. Thing number two is figure out what inspired you as a kid. And thing number three is what did you see in the flame, right? Try those out, guys, for me and let me know if they work for you. The first story I want to tell you about, a Marine buddy of mine came to me and said, Donnie, I'm in the insurance business and I'm just trying to figure out how to do bigger in sales and make more money so I can support my family better. And I said, okay, tell me about the insurance business. And he started going on. He started talking about it, and you could tell really quickly that he freaking hated insurance, right? You know, it just was not the thing that got him excited about anything. So I said, can I be honest with you? He goes, well, that's why I hired you, which I hear all the time. And I said, so why are you in insurance? And he goes, well, it pays the bills. And I said, that sucks. And he goes, well, what do you mean? I said, well, you can't get excited about something you don't even enjoy selling. And he goes, yeah, but it's what I got. I said, okay, what was fun when you were a kid? And he goes, well, that's an odd question. I said, well, figure it out. What was fun when you were a kid? He goes, as a kid, Dad used to take me out and we'd race go-karts. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Tell me about go-karts. And so he started telling me about, go-kart racing. I'd race go-karts when I was a kid, but, it was a little thing you paid for like 3 laps around the track. Now, this dude had like full-on NASCAR-style freaking go-karts and with sponsors and everything else. And I was like, holy shit, I didn't even realize that was a thing. And as he talked about, racing his go-karts, his entire mentality changed. His body language changed, his tonality changed, everything changed. And I looked at him and I said, dude, why the hell are you not racing go-karts? He goes, man, I'll be honest, there's no flipping money in it. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, unless you're one of the top, unless you're one of the badasses in there, dude, you're just not going to make any money. I said, so you won't do it because you can't make immediate money? And he laughed at me and goes, well, yeah, if I could have the next 5 or 6 years, I could really, probably get back into it and be somebody. I said, okay. Well, let's look at that racetrack. How many people probably go to one of those racetracks and goes, oh, if the race is a couple of thousand, it'll be around the tracks and, the sponsors and the drivers and this, that, and the other. And I said, and I bet none of them need insurance. And he goes, I fucking hate you. And, with that response, it told me it was just his mind just flipped that he's in an industry that he hates, but there is a way to get around an industry he loves and still make money in the now while he built up his freaking business. So flash forward to a few months later, and he's out on the track. He was at the time, last time I talked to him, he was one of the number 3 drivers down, had several sponsors. He's no longer selling insurance, right? He's out kicking ass and taking names, and he's doing 100% of the time. He's nothing but a go-kart driver. And, it's one of those things, guys, that when you struggle with, how do I get to where I want to go? Remember, most people started their second business while working for somebody else. I have a friend that started a podcast coaching business while she was working with somebody else, which turned into a really cool thing. But this guy, once he figured out he could do what he was currently doing, which, hey, guys, all sales guys, whatever your passion is, seriously, go get around your passion and sell to the people that are around your passion. Now you guys have this commonality. Now you have this thing to talk about. It's a great thing to help your sales stuff. But when you get around your passion, the universe just starts stepping up and making everything fall in line. And that's exactly what happened for this guy. Now you talk to him, and he's excited about life. He's happy about things. He spends more time with his family. They take more vacation. And, we joke about the insurance stuff and how that was kind of his gateway drug to find what he really wanted to do. So, guys, get around your passion. If you don't know what your passion is, get around whatever excited you when you were younger and watch what happens.
The second client story is about a dear friend and client of mine.
So she was a big-time executive working in the pharmaceutical industry. She was like number 3 in the company and really kicking ass and taking names in life. She came from a small town, always kind of felt like the kid that was left out, if you will. She decided that she was never going to be that odd kid going through life, so she started challenging everything and taking everything on. And she had a couple of very successful careers, and her last one was in a pharmaceutical company, but she was traveling 4 weeks out of the month, home very rarely on the weekends, and it was really weighing on her marriage. And while it was weighing on her marriage, she realized she couldn't keep the balance in her life and stay with her husband, who she loved to death, and maintain this lifestyle. She threw all caution to the wind and left that company and the income that came with it and went and became a financial advisor. And it was one of those things, not something that she really ever thought about doing, but she knew she needed a life change. And, she was a CPA by trade, by heart. She loved numbers, and she really thought that she could help other people. Well, by the time she got to me, she was at that spot in life where she knew she needed to be kicking a little bit more ass, but she was doing the financial advising thing, but it just wasn't passionate enough. So we started down the path of helping her reframe the thought process that she's not a financial advisor, she's actually a financial coach, which really got us to really start thinking about, what does a financial coach do? You're not just selling, 401k crap and IRAs and investments and all that. You're actually coaching somebody how to fundamentally change their life. And that really started to work for her. But as we kept talking, it just wasn't enough. So I took her through the flame exercise. Interestingly enough, as I walked her through the flame exercise, when we got to the end, she jumped up off the couch she was sitting on. And it's not like a psychologist couch, guys. Don't get any weird ideas. I don't have any sort of degrees to put people on couches. But she jumped up off the couch and she goes, "Oh my God, I got it." I said, "Okay, help me out here. What is it?" And she said, "What I saw is a group of very strong, confident women sitting around a fire." I'm like, "Interesting. What does that mean?" And she goes, "I have no idea." I said, "Okay, well, at least we got a concept, we got an idea, but let's delve into that a little bit. So what's the conversation happening in the flame?" And she goes, "I really think that it's just a bunch of strong, confident, executive-type women that have a safe place where they can just go and talk and really let their hair down." I'm like, "That's kind of a cool idea. What do you think as you think that?" And tears welled up in her eyes, and she goes, "I think that's it." To summarize that story, what she's doing now is she's actually creating a women's retreat. She's still working out the names of it, where she's going to be taking executive women that are at the top of their flipping game and taking them all off to a weekend retreat that they're going to be able to go and let their hair down, do some badass things, be put in an environment where there's some other just badasses around the room, have a safe place where they can share the things that they can't share around their office. They can't, because unfortunately, ladies, we all know that you guys get a bad rap in the corporate America. It's not a fair game. If anybody who says otherwise is full of shit, right? We just know it's not a fair game. So they can't show weakness. When they're in that big executive world, they can't show weakness because they're going to be devoured. And some jackass is looking to devour them. So she's creating this place where these women can come and really open up, right? Because they don't get to do it. They can't open up around their family because they're probably the more strong personality in the relationship, right? They're probably the breadwinner in that relationship, so they can't show weakness there. They, of course, don't want to show weakness around their friends because people see them, so their friends don't understand their careers. They don't understand what they're doing. So there's really no place these badass women can go to open up and discuss these type of things. So what she's going to do is create an environment where these people can go and just discuss anything, put it on the table, right? And it's going to end, the last night is going to end with a campfire conversation where they're sitting around the campfire and able to discuss and do all these things that she's hoping to accomplish, and then she's going to turn it into a big conference and everything else. But this all came from seeing that picture in the fire and then really diving into what that actually meant, what it is, what it means, and then expanding on that idea. And now what we did from there is what we'll cover a lot in the next episode, but is how do you take that stuff? Once you figure out what it is, how do you take that stuff and actually turn it into a business? Or how do you take it and turn it into a revenue stream? Or how do you take it and do what I love to tell people? How do you take it and run like hell, right? How do you go for it? Business is tough. We know that. Life is tough. And you're always going to have things that you're awesome at. You're always going to have things that you struggle with. But we talked about in the beginning, one of the things to success you have to do is grind it out. So how do we pick the grind, right? How do we pick the things we need to do so we're working in the right direction and we keep the crap off our plate so we can actually run like hell? Just a couple of quick key takeaways from this whole thing. I figured I'd share a couple of other client stories based on using those three kind of concepts of finding your what do you want to be when you grow up. And I was sitting with another client, and it's kind of funny, is I was using the go-kart story, which you heard in episode 1, right? Could kind of reference that again. But I was using the go-kart story, and I was talking to him about this is what he did to realize this is what he wanted to be when he grew up. And as soon as I got done talking about how he went off and raced go-karts, the guy goes, "Holy shit. It's airplanes." And I laughed and I said, "Okay, what do you mean by airplanes?" And he goes, "Dude, I love to fly." And I said, "Okay, tell me about flying." And he goes, as a kid, I had a grandfather who was a pilot, and I loved to fly and go out with him. But I got my own pilot's license, and I was doing that. The problem is I got a career. His dad actually owned the company that he was working at, and so he's been working his entire life to basically take the business over from Dad. As he started talking about airplanes, he started thinking, he goes, when that whole thing where you talked about all the people who needed insurance around the track, all the people who need the services I sell are at the small airports. They hang out there. They're the pilots out there, this, that, and the other. Why does Sam Hill am I not flying a plane? And we started talking about how he can build and wrap his head around going and getting around the planes and chasing the passion. And, there's airports he can land in and go talk to the people at the different places where you eat restaurants. So that's his story. Now I'm going to compound that one more time. Is I was telling the go-kart story, then the airplane story to another client. And that client, after he got done hearing the airplane story, he goes, "I freaking hate my job." I said, "What?" He goes, "I hate my job and what I do." I said, "Well, why do you say that?" He goes, "Because I freaking love social media, and I'm a damn realtor, and I hate being a realtor." He goes, "It pays the income, it pays the money, but that's not what I want to do." And I said, "Well, okay, what do you want to do?" He goes, "I want to teach people how to do social media." I said, "Okay, so go do that." And he goes, "Can I?" I said, "What's stopping you, right? Get after it and try it." And sure as shit, now he's out teaching people in, doing social media in the real estate market. So guys, sometimes it's listening to other people's stories and how they found their journey will help you find your journey along the way. So hopefully this helps you out a little bit trying to discover specifically what is your inner badass. What are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to figure out? How you're supposed to throw more logs on your inner flame, right? So you can explode and go bigger and more badass. Just like I was working with my client, and as I'm telling these stories and their brain starts gearing and things start churning all the way through, I'm curious to know what's going on in your mind. What are those things that you are like, damn, if I could only do that, it would be fun. If I could only do that, it wouldn't feel like work, right? If I could only do this thing, I could be the badass I always thought I could be. Because if you start, and I tell you, take down a pad and paper and just start writing, right? And just start writing down all these ideas. And you know you're heading in the right direction when your whole body and your whole being gets into it, right? If you start thinking about whatever it is. Well, like the guys with the go-karts, or the guy with the plane, or me being a success coach. If I tell people about my career, I don't get all that excited. But if I start telling them about how I help people and how I try and inspire others to really run like hell, now my whole body, my whole being gets into it, and I turn into like an Italian that talks with their hands, and I'm Polish, so I don't know how that works. But really stay focused on, guys, what is it that you want to do? And if you're still a little hazy, take a little bitty ounce of whatever it is and start in that direction. Everything happens for an absolute reason. And once you really start discovering who you are, once you start taking a hard look at your life and going, man, this is just what I was put here to do, the universe will start peeling all of those things in there, and they'll start lining up the world, and you'll be amazed at the doors that open for you. And the reason doors don't open for you now is because you're not chasing that passion. You're not going for it. So guys, as you look at this whole thing, this whole thought process, when you start chasing your passion, it's about most likely getting out of whatever you're currently doing. Right? It's about really going after it. And there's gurus out there that tout that entrepreneurs are born. You can't become an entrepreneur. And I think they're freaking idiots, because I think people are born with natural skill sets. I think there's things that people do tend to have better, but we learn every skill there is. Right? Any sort of skill can be honed. Now, I do believe that there's certain skill sets that people have better strengths in it. But just like, nobody's born a leader, they become a leader. Nobody's born a salesperson, they become a salesperson. Nobody's born an entrepreneur, they become an entrepreneur. And that's all through the process of chasing your dreams and see where it leads you. Most businesses and most things are started while they're working for somebody else. While they hold a job down, they're chasing it, and it's called all the time your side hustle, which I think is just a funny phrase, because anytime I hear the word hustle, it doesn't make me think of being a badass and working hard. It makes me think of you're hustling somebody. But so if that is your side gig, that thing you're doing, maybe this is just the path and a way to get there. You can be crazy like I did, and I literally put notice into my career that I was done. I was no longer working in that business, that industry. I was going out on my own with no safety nets whatsoever. I mean, so you can do that, or you can go work for somebody for a little while, and while you build this whole thing up. But guys, if you're really chasing your dreams, you probably could be working for somebody else, but really it's more for those people that want to go big as shit doing whatever and set the world on fire. The one thing I will tell you is big as shit doesn't mean wealth. Big as shit is just doing things that makes you feel good. My brother, God love him, did 24 years in the Marine Corps. He's now a handyman and the most happy guy in the freaking world. Right? He doesn't make a whole lot of money. So it's not about making a shit ton of money. It's about chasing your absolute passion and doing that thing you love. Dude, he has his little farm. It's just down the road from mine. And he loves to know that he's bringing in extra money besides his Marine Corps retirement. And then he can do little projects around the house, come over and help me on projects in my house. And he's content. He's happy. He can do whatever he wants. He is chasing his dreams. Right? And he put in a lot of work and a lot of years to be able to get to that level so he could do it. But he's never going to be a multimillionaire. And he doesn't want to be. It's just not his thing. So sometimes chasing your dreams is not about going and making a shit ton of money. It's about doing what you love and being content and happy there. Just to kind of wrap up this episode, it's been a lot of fun for me. I hope you've enjoyed it a little bit. We talked about finding your inner badass, right? We talked about finding that inner thing, that inner passion, that inner drive, and really figuring out what you want to be when you grow up. We talked through about the 3 ways you can do it to be an inner badass. And of course, my favorite is, the flame activity. We talked about seeing the images in the flame and seeing what pops up so you can really figure out what it is you want to be. And don't forget, guys, I'd love for you to hit me up on all the social media stuff. I have a couple of cool things. So my ebook, it's called That's Not How You Journal, Jackass. And the way that came about is when I was coaching one day and I was in a sales slump, I was talking to my coach and I said, oh, woe is me, sales suck, life sucks, I'm just not hitting the level I want to hit. And he looked at me and said, do you journal? And And I said, of course not, I don't freaking journal. He goes, well, why don't you journal? I'm like, well, that's something 12-year-old little girls do. I mean, that's I don't know what the hell to write. And he goes, well, what do you think of when you think of journaling? And I said, well, exactly that. A 12-year-old little girl that's writing some shit down on a notepad. So that's not something I do. And he looked right back at me. He said, that's not how you journal, jackass. And I said, if I ever write a book, I'm titling it that. So, well, guess what? I've titled the book, That's Not How You Journal, Jackass. So, but you can find that on my website. It's free to download, which I'm excited about. I didn't want to charge for it, but so go check that out. Website is www.donnieboivin.com. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook. Instagram is @DonnieBoivin. Twitter's @DonnieBoivin. Facebook is @SuccessChampion. Dive into those. Got some live videos out. I'm always putting out a ton of content for you guys to really dive into, and more. Oh, get me on YouTube as well. You can find me there on my channel, Donnie Boivin. YouTube me there, and you can see the daily drives with Donnie, where I just talk about what's going on. My vlog's also there, so you can find it out there, where I just kind of summarize the day, and you can kind of see me doing things like creating podcasts and interacting with clients and the likes and recaps. But all this, guys, is to set up to provide a platform so you guys can be your own success story, right? And so you can light the world.
Hey guys, seriously, thanks for listening to this badass episode. I love doing these. I love to hear people's stories and journeys, but what I love most is if you can comment, if you share, if you can tell your friends about this podcast, that would mean everything to me.